Her own brothers tried to erase her from their father's legacy. They silenced the lawyer, faked the will, and nearly took her life. But what they didn't know was that she had more than just proof. She had the courage to expose them all. This is the true story of how one woman fought back against betrayal, lies, and danger, and won. Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. The sky was grey. Not the kind of soft grey that looked like rain, but a heavy, angry grey that pressed down on everything. It matched how Ella Whitmore felt inside. Her black dress clung to her skin as the cold wind brushed against her arms. Her fingers tightened around the white rose she held. She was standing at her father's funeral, surrounded by people who didn't want her there. Her father, Richard Whitmore, was a respected businessman. He built an empire from the ground up, and he always told Ella, "One day, this will all be yours too." She believed him. He treated her like his little princess. But now, he was gone, and nothing felt right. Her brothers, James and Caleb, stood near the coffin, pretending to cry. Ella knew better. They barely spoke to their father in the last few months. They only came around when money was involved. Ella felt a sharp elbow brush her side. It was her Aunt Margaret, whispering through gritted teeth. "Stand properly, Ella. People are watching." Ella bit her lip and looked down. Her eyes burned with unshed tears. Not just from losing her father, but from the way everyone treated her since his death. Like she didn't belong. Like she was just a shadow. The priest finished the final prayer. One by one, people dropped roses onto the coffin. Ella stepped forward slowly. Her heart pounded. She knelt beside the casket. "I'll find out the truth, Dad," she whispered. "I promise." She placed her rose gently and walked away. Later that day, in the Whitmore mansion, everyone gathered for the will reading. Ella sat at the edge of the room while James and Caleb lounged comfortably in the front. The family lawyer, Mr. Dean Harper, opened the brown envelope with shaking hands. "This is the official will of Mr. Richard Whitmore," he said. Ella sat up straight. Mr. Harper continued reading, his voice steady until he reached the part that made Ella's heart stop. "All properties, shares, and remaining assets shall be equally divided between my sons, James and Caleb Whitmore." There was silence. Ella blinked. Her name hadn't been mentioned. "That must be a mistake," she said aloud, her voice shaking. James smirked. "It's not. Face it, Ella. You were never really one of us." Caleb added coldly, "You were adopted. You think Dad wanted to leave you anything?" Ella stood up. "Dad would never leave me out like that. He promised me. He said we would run the company together." Mr. Harper looked uncomfortable. "This is the will we have on record." Tears welled up in Ella's eyes. She looked at her aunt, who avoided her gaze. The room was quiet except for her shaky breathing. "You all knew," she whispered. "You all planned this." James stood. "Get over it, Ella. Dad's gone. Let it go." Ella left the room, her chest tight, her heart burning. She didn't believe it. Something was wrong. She could feel it. That night, alone in her father's study, she ran her fingers along the desk he used to sit behind. Everything was untouched. His books, his glasses, even the half-used notepad where he scribbled his thoughts. She sat in his chair and cried silently. Her fingers brushed against something hard under the drawer. Curious, she pulled it out. It was a small, old recording device. She pressed play. Her father's voice came through, soft and serious. "Ella, if you're hearing this, it means things didn't go as planned. There are people who don't want you to have what is rightfully yours. If anything happens to me, look behind the painting in the study, behind the horse painting. Trust no one. Not even your brothers." Ella gasped. She jumped to her feet and rushed to the painting. With trembling hands, she removed it from the wall. There was a small wooden panel behind it. She pried it open. Inside, she found a thick envelope labeled, "For Ella." Inside was a letter and a copy of a different will. A will that clearly gave Ella 50% of everything. Her father's letter read, "My dearest Ella, I know you've always felt like the outsider, but you are my child. No paper or blood test can change what we have. I fear James and Caleb would not accept my decision to make you a full heir. That's why I prepared this separate document. If anything happens to me, take this to Mr. Harper immediately. Do not delay. Protect yourself. And always remember, you were the best part of my life. Love. Dad." Ella clutched the letter to her chest. "I knew it," she whispered. "He didn't forget me." But the moment of relief didn't last long. The next morning, she returned to the lawyer's office with the will in hand. But Mr. Harper was gone. The office was empty. His secretary said he hadn't shown up for work. His phone was switched off. His home phone rang endlessly. Ella's stomach twisted. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Ella sat on the marble floor of the study, her back against the bookshelf, the envelope still clutched in her lap. Her thoughts raced. What do I do now? Who can I trust? She whispered to herself. She remembered the warning in her father's letter. Trust no one. Not even your brothers. A soft knock came at the door. She stood up quickly and slipped the documents into her coat. It was Aunt Margaret. "Ella, you didn't come to breakfast. Are you all right?" Ella gave a weak smile. "Just needed some time alone. Dad's study helps me feel close to him." Margaret stepped inside, her eyes scanning the room. "He did love this place. You always sat on the floor while he worked, reading your little books." Ella nodded. Her heart pounded. Was Aunt Margaret one of the people she couldn't trust? "We all miss him," Margaret added, placing a hand on Ella's shoulder. Ella forced a nod. "I know." Margaret's gaze lingered on the shelves. "Did he ever say anything strange before he passed?" Ella's guard went up. "What do you mean?" "Nothing," she said quickly. "Just wondering. Anyway, let me know if you need anything." As soon as Margaret left, Ella locked the door. Later that afternoon, Ella decided to visit someone who might help, her childhood nanny, Martha Jennings. Martha had worked for the family for over 20 years. Her father trusted her deeply. Martha lived in a small cottage near the edge of the estate. When Ella knocked, the old woman opened the door, her eyes lighting up. "Ella, my child. Come in, come in." Ella hugged her tightly. "Martha, I need your help." They sat on a faded couch as Ella explained everything, the will reading, the recording, the hidden documents, and Mr. Harper's sudden disappearance. Martha listened quietly, then sighed deeply. "I always feared they'd do something like this," she said. "James and Caleb. They hated how your father treated you. You were everything they weren't. Kind, honest, strong." Ella's eyes filled with tears. "Why would they lie like this? Why try to erase me?" "Because your existence threatens their control," Martha replied. "But your father was smart. He trusted you with the truth. That means something." "But what if I can't prove it? What if they destroy everything?" Martha took her hands. "Then you fight with more than just proof. You fight with fire, with truth, and with every ounce of courage you have. Your father believed in you. I believe in you." Ella wiped her tears. "Then I won't stop. I'll make them regret ever thinking they could silence me." Before Ella left, Martha gave her an old phone. "It was your father's. He used it for private messages. Maybe there's something in it that can help you." Ella returned to the mansion, her mind burning with determination. As she lay in bed that night, she held her father's phone and whispered, "I'll find the truth, Dad. No matter what it costs." Outside her window, hidden in the shadows, someone watched the light go out in her room. They were not done with her. But neither was she. The next morning, Ella woke up with an unsettling feeling in her chest. She hadn't slept much. Every creak of the old mansion made her sit up in panic. Still holding on to her father's phone and the hidden will, she told herself she had to be strong. She stepped outside to get some air and clear her mind. The gravel crunched beneath her slippers as she walked toward the garage. She wanted to drive into town to print copies of the hidden will. But when she reached her car, her heart dropped. The driver's side door was slightly ajar. That was odd. She was sure she had locked it the night before. She slowly approached and crouched to look underneath the vehicle. Her eyes widened. The brake lines had been cut. She gasped and stumbled backward, her breath quickening. Who would do this? She whispered to herself. Footsteps. She stood up quickly, dusting off her knees. James stood a few feet behind her, leaning against a pillar with a smirk. Having car trouble. Ella's face hardened. Did you do this? James shrugged, not even trying to deny it. You should be careful, Ella. This estate is old. Accidents happen all the time. You cut my brakes, she snapped. You could have killed me. James stepped closer, voice low. Or saved you the trouble of getting involved in things you don't understand. Ella stood her ground, fists clenched. You're scared. That's why you're trying to intimidate me. You know I have something. James gave a cold laugh and walked away, tossing a glance over his shoulder. Keep digging, and you'll dig your own grave. Shaken, Ella rushed back inside and locked herself in her room. Her hands trembled as she dialed Martha. They cut my brakes, Martha. James was right there, smirking like it was a joke. Martha's voice was firm and steady. Come here, child. You can't stay there alone anymore. Ella packed a small bag, carefully placing the original will, the letter, and her father's phone inside. She slipped out the side entrance of the house before anyone noticed. She borrowed the gardener's old bicycle and pedaled all the way to Martha's cottage at the edge of the estate. When Martha opened the door, she pulled her into a tight hug. You're safe now, sweetheart. They sat down on the worn-out sofa with a cup of tea. Ella looked exhausted but determined. I don't know what to do next, she admitted. I have this will. But the lawyer's missing. And now James is trying to scare me off. Martha leaned forward. Then we find someone else. Someone your father trusted. You mentioned he used to talk about another legal advisor. Ella blinked. Yes. Arthur Blake. He helped Dad with confidential matters. She grabbed her father's old contact book from her bag and quickly scanned the pages. There it was. Arthur Blake. She dialed the number. A gruff but clear voice answered. Arthur Blake. Mr. Blake, my name is Ella Whitmore. I'm Richard Whitmore's daughter. There was a short silence. Ella. I remember. What's this about? My father left a second will, a hidden one. The lawyer he trusted is missing, and I believe my brothers are trying to cover it up. Another pause. Come to my office tomorrow morning. Don't tell anyone you're coming. Bring everything. Arthur Blake's office was tucked in a quiet corner of town, simple, old-fashioned, and neat. The kind of place where secrets stayed safe. Ella arrived early. She wore a cap pulled low and sunglasses, just in case. She clutched her documents tightly as she stepped inside. Arthur stood to greet her. He was in his 60s, with silver hair and clear, intelligent eyes. Ella Whitmore, he said gently. You look just like your mother. Ella blinked. You knew her. Arthur smiled faintly. Yes. Your father loved you both deeply. Now, let me see what you've brought. She handed over the letter and the second will. Arthur read through everything carefully. His brow furrowed, his eyes sharp as they scanned every line. After a long pause, he looked up. This is real, he said. It's notarized, properly formatted, signed, and dated. And it's later than the one read at the funeral. Ella's heart leapt. So I have a case. Absolutely. If we present this in court, James and Caleb will be forced to acknowledge it. But you have to move fast and be smart. If your father's lawyer has disappeared, it means someone's already covering tracks. Arthur leaned forward. Do you have copies? Ella nodded. Digital and physical. Good. Keep the original with you at all times. And make sure no one knows where you're staying. She nodded again. I'm staying with Martha for now. Before she left, Arthur gave her one last warning. This will get ugly. Your brothers won't just give up power or money. You've made yourself a target. Ella returned to Martha's cottage with a flicker of hope. He said the will is valid. I have a case, she said, her voice shaking with emotion. Martha's eyes softened. Your father would be proud. But before the moment could settle, a rustling sound came from the door. Martha opened it. There was no one there. Just an envelope. Ella picked it up and opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper. All capital letters. Bold. Angry. Stop digging or you'll end up buried too. Her hands shook. Martha snatched the paper and tossed it into the fireplace. They're scared, Ella. That means you're winning. But from now on, no more being alone. Not for a second. Ella sat down slowly, her breathing uneven. They're watching us. Then let them, Martha said fiercely. But they'll soon learn, they're not the only ones with something to protect. That night, as the wind howled outside the small cottage, Ella stared out the window. She could feel eyes on her from somewhere in the dark. But for the first time in days, she didn't feel helpless. She had proof. She had support. She had her father's truth in her hands. You tried to silence me, she whispered. But now, I'm louder than ever. Ella couldn't sleep. The anonymous threat haunted her, replaying in her mind like a broken record. Stop digging or you'll end up buried too. She sat in Martha's dimly lit kitchen with her father's phone, the will, and her laptop in front of her. She opened the recorder app and hit the red button. My name is Ella Whitmore. My father, Richard Whitmore, left a legal will giving me half of his estate. That will has been hidden. My brothers have tried to silence me. I am afraid for my safety. But I will not be quiet. She saved the recording and sent it to a cloud drive with password protection. Then she drafted an email to herself, her lawyer Arthur Blake, and 2 local reporters she found online. Attached were digital scans of the will, her father's handwritten letter, and the threat note from her doorstep. Martha walked in and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. What are you doing, sweetheart? Ella looked up. If something happens to me, I want the world to know why. And who. The next morning, Ella and Martha watched the news from the couch. A young anchor's voice read from a breaking story. Shocking developments surrounding the Whitmore family estate. A hidden will has reportedly surfaced, giving the late Richard Whitmore's daughter, Ella, equal inheritance. A video and supporting documents were sent anonymously to our newsroom. The original lawyer has gone missing under mysterious circumstances. Ella clutched Martha's hand. I've done it. I've told the world. Her phone buzzed non-stop. Reporters, bloggers, old schoolmates, even distant relatives. But then came the text she had been dreading, from her brother Caleb. You just declared war. Arthur Blake called minutes later. Ella, you forced their hand. You're in danger, but now the legal system has to pay attention. Public pressure changes everything. You're not alone anymore. What happens now? She asked. Now we file a motion in court to freeze all Whitmore assets until the validity of the second will is confirmed. Ella exhaled slowly. She felt fear, but she also felt power. Let them come, she whispered. James paced his private office in the Whitmore estate, phone pressed to his ear. She went public, James, Caleb said on speaker. She's made us look like thieves. We need to end this. And how do you suggest we do that? Have her kidnapped in broad daylight? James barked. Not yet, Caleb muttered. But we do need to make her seem unstable. Discredit her. Make people question her version. James paused, then smirked. What if we make it look like she forged the will? That same afternoon, Ella received an unexpected call. Miss Whitmore, this is Detective Laurel from the District Fraud Division. We've received a tip that the will you submitted may be falsified. Ella's blood ran cold. What? Who told you that? We can't disclose that, but you'll need to come in for questioning. Ella's hands trembled as she hung up. Martha frowned from across the room. What is it? They're accusing me of forging the will. Those devils, Martha hissed. They're twisting everything. Ella called Arthur immediately. They filed a complaint saying I forged the documents. Of course they did. But don't worry. We'll respond with an affidavit from the notary and forensic analysis of the signatures. They're grasping at straws. But Ella felt the walls closing in. That evening, she walked into the nearby town cafe to take a break, and all eyes turned toward her. People whispered. Some took photos. Others watched with curiosity. She sat quietly in the corner. Then a man in a grey suit approached her table. Ella Whitmore. Yes. I'm with Truth Uncovered Weekly. I'd like to hear your side of the story. You're becoming quite the name. Ella forced a smile. Then let me tell you the truth before someone else twists it. As she spoke, the weight on her chest lifted slightly. Every time she shared her story, she took back a little more of her voice. That night, back at Martha's, she checked her phone again. A voicemail. It was James's voice. You think you're brave, Ella? You're not. You're reckless. And sooner or later, you'll regret poking this bear. She didn't reply. Instead, she hit save, and forwarded the recording to Arthur and her digital backup drive. Then she looked in the mirror. You're scared of me, she whispered to her reflection. That's why you're trying so hard to break me. But she wouldn't break. She would rise. A week later, Ella sat outside the courthouse, dressed in a black blazer and white blouse. She stared at the building with a mix of dread and determination. Inside, the first hearing would begin, the motion to freeze the Whitmore assets while the validity of the second will was examined. Arthur walked up beside her, a folder in hand. You look nervous, he said gently. I am, Ella admitted. They have money, power, lawyers. I have this. She held up the original will. Arthur smiled. And truth. That matters more than you know. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense. James and Caleb sat across the aisle with smug expressions, flanked by two expensive-looking attorneys. When they saw Ella enter, James gave her a slow, mocking clap. Judge Rowan, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, called the hearing to order. We are here to assess whether a legitimate dispute exists over the late Richard Whitmore's estate and whether to issue a temporary freeze on all financial transactions related to it. Arthur stood and presented the will, along with the notary's affidavit and the digital timestamp from the hidden drive. James's lawyer countered immediately. Your Honor, we believe this document is a fabrication. Our clients were unaware of any secret will. This appears only after Mr. Harper vanished. It's suspicious at best. Ella stood. Your Honor, I didn't ask for this. I was ready to mourn my father in peace. But he gave me this. He trusted me to fight if something happened to him. And now, I'm doing what he asked. The courtroom was quiet. Judge Rowan looked at Ella for a long moment before speaking. There is enough merit in this claim to investigate further. I am issuing a temporary freeze on the Whitmore estate pending full verification of both wills. James stood up in frustration. This is ridiculous. Sit down, Mr. Whitmore, Judge Rowan snapped. If your claim is strong, it will stand. If not, your sister deserves her due. After court, Ella stepped into the sun with shaky legs. Arthur clapped a hand on her shoulder. You did it. This is the first real win. But before they could celebrate, a reporter rushed up to her with a camera crew. Ella Whitmore, how does it feel to be fighting your own family in court? Ella hesitated. Then she stepped closer and said, "It's not about fighting family. It's about defending my father's truth. I didn't ask for a war, but I won't run from one either." That night, Ella returned to Martha's cottage. She expected quiet. But what she found was Martha sitting stiffly on the couch, eyes red from crying. "What's wrong?" Ella rushed to her. Martha held out her phone. "This came to me an hour ago." It was a short video clip, grainy and dark. It showed a man in a black hoodie sneaking around the edge of the Whitmore estate, placing something in Martha's mailbox. Then the screen turned black. A robotic voice said, "If you don't stop helping her, next time it won't just be a message." Ella's face went pale. "They're threatening you now." Martha gave her a trembling smile. "I'm not afraid for myself, dear. But you need to be careful. They're getting desperate." The next day, Ella decided to confront the past. She visited the housekeeper, Clara, who had worked in the Whitmore mansion for 30 years and left quietly just after Richard died. Clara opened the door to her modest home and looked surprised. "Ella, why are you here?" "Please. I need answers. About my father. About James and Caleb. About what happened the week before the funeral." Clara hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside, she poured Ella a cup of tea and sat across from her. "Your father, he wasn't well. But not in the way people said. He was scared. He told me that someone in the family was trying to force him to change his will." Ella leaned in. "Who?" Clara looked down at her hands. "James. He brought in people, strange men, told your father he'd lose everything unless he made the right decision. That's why your father hid things. He didn't trust anyone." Ella sat back in shock. "He tried to protect me, even when he was dying." Clara nodded. "But he also made enemies by doing so." Before Ella left, Clara handed her a key. "This was left in your father's coat pocket the day he died. He told me it opened a drawer in his old office. I didn't know what to do with it. Maybe now's the time." That evening, Ella returned to the estate, alone. She crept through the shadows like a thief in her own home. Inside her father's old office, she found the drawer the key belonged to. It opened with a soft click. Inside were 3 things. 1. A small black journal filled with dates and names. 2. A sealed envelope labeled for Ella, in case of betrayal. 3. A USB flash drive. Her hands shook as she opened the envelope. It was another letter. "Ella, if you're reading this, then the worst has happened. I was being forced to change the will. I refused. I knew I wouldn't survive long. This drive contains voice recordings and video footage. If anything happens to me, take this to someone you trust. And never let James near it." Ella's heart pounded. He knew. He knew they'd come for him. She slipped the drive into her pocket. "They silenced you, Dad. But now it's my turn to speak." Ella held the USB drive in her hand as if it were made of glass. She sat on the floor of her late father's study, the room dim and silent except for the pounding of her heart. Martha was by her side, eyes wide with concern. "Should we open it now?" Martha asked quietly. "Yes," Ella whispered. "If it's what I think it is, this could end everything." They plugged the drive into Ella's laptop. A single folder appeared. "In case of betrayal." Inside were 5 voice recordings and 2 hidden camera videos. Ella clicked the first audio file. Her father's voice filled the room. "March 4th, James and Caleb came to see me again. They brought a stranger this time. Told me if I didn't rewrite the will and remove Ella, they'd ruin me. I told them no. I told them Ella is my legacy, not my liability." Ella clenched her jaw, tears stinging her eyes. He tried to protect me even when they cornered him. They played the next clip. This one was clearer. A heated conversation. James's voice, "Just sign it, Dad. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Richard, "She's my daughter. She stays in the will." Caleb, "You think she'll survive in our world? She's weak." Richard, "No, she's stronger than both of you combined." Martha covered her mouth. "My God." Then Ella opened the first video. A grainy hidden camera feed from her father's office. It showed James slipping something into Richard's teacup while Caleb distracted him. Ella gasped. They poisoned him." The second video was even worse. It showed James forging Richard's signature on a document, smirking as he practiced it again and again. Ella slammed the laptop shut. "That's it," she said, standing. "We're going to the police. We're going to the press. I'm ending this. No more hiding." Arthur Blake listened in stunned silence as Ella played the files for him in his office later that night. "This is damning. This is more than enough. We're not just talking about inheritance fraud anymore. This is conspiracy. Attempted murder. Possibly even worse." He stood up, voice steady with conviction. "We take this to the police first thing in the morning. And I'll contact the judge immediately. They won't walk away from this." The courtroom was packed. Journalists, family members, even former employees filled every seat. Ella sat with Arthur and Martha beside her, the USB drive in her purse. Her heart thundered as she stared at her brothers on the other side of the room. James looked agitated. Caleb refused to meet her eyes. Judge Rowan entered and everyone stood. "We have new evidence submitted this morning," she said, addressing the room. "And based on preliminary police investigation, I have called an emergency session." Arthur stood. "Your Honor, what we're about to show you may be disturbing, but it is the truth." He played the audio clips first. The courtroom fell into complete silence. Then the hidden video of James poisoning Richard's tea. Gasps echoed. Even the bailiff looked shaken. Finally, the clip of James forging the signature. Caleb's lawyer stood abruptly. "We would like to change our plea and fully cooperate with the court. My client was pressured and manipulated into participating by his older brother." "Liar!" James shouted. "We did this together. Don't throw me under the bus." Judge Rowan banged her gavel. "Silence." Police officers entered the courtroom and approached the brothers. "James and Caleb Whitmore, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted poisoning, and obstruction of justice." Ella watched as her brothers were handcuffed and taken away. She felt no triumph, only a deep, quiet ache in her chest. But she had won. Not just the legal battle, but her father's name, his truth, and her rightful place. 2 months later, Ella stood in front of the Whitmore Group building, her name now engraved on the new plaque beside the doors. Ella R. Whitmore, CEO. She took a deep breath as she stepped inside. Staff who once looked down on her now nodded with respect. Some even smiled. Martha walked beside her, proud tears in her eyes. "Your father would be beaming today," she said. Ella turned to her with a soft smile. "He gave me everything. And now, I'm going to honor him by making this company something he'd be proud of." That afternoon, Ella held a press conference. Cameras flashed. "My name is Ella Whitmore. I was betrayed by the people closest to me. They tried to erase me. They tried to silence me. But I'm still here. Not just as an heir, but as a fighter, a builder, and a voice for truth." Applause erupted. As she stepped away from the microphone, she looked up at the sky and whispered, "We did it, Dad." If this story gave you chills or left you inspired, don't scroll past. Hit that like button, share this with someone who believes in justice, and don't forget to subscribe for more real, raw, and powerful stories like this one. What would you do if your own family turned against you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one.